Hey everyone, Wolf Lord Rho here. Today we're discussing the interesting relationship between the Astra Militarum and the Adeptus Mechanicus. Spoiler warning to begin, as the events we're discussing today are from the Warhammer 40k novel Priests of Mars by author Graham McNeill. As always, I really recommend you read the stories for yourself first without spoilers, as that's the best way to enjoy the lore for yourself. But with that said, let's just jump straight in. Now, while a lot of the praise for the Imperium's survival goes to the legendary Space Marines, the truth is the Imperium owes just as much, if not more, to the Astra Militarum and Adeptus Mechanicus. It is the ceaseless tide of Imperial bodies that fuels the Militarum's efforts. Every minute of every hour, thousands if not millions of lives are spent in the name of the Emperor, on untold battlefields the galaxy over. It is through the Militarum's sacrifice that the Imperium endures. And the Mechanicum certainly gives its own fair share of blood as well, its destiny intertwined with the Imperium since the day the Emperor set foot upon the Red Planet. But while the Militarum may be the sledgehammer of the Imperium, the Adeptus Mechanicus is undoubtedly the furnace. As the Militarum throws soldiers at the enemy tirelessly, so too do the Forge Worlds make it even possible. Void ships, transports, tanks, weapons, even ammo, all of it churned out continuously by the Adeptus Mechanicus. Not only do the Mechanicus provide the tools of war, they provide the very vessels to get the armies to the war zones. As vastly different as these two factions are, they are each undeniably equally integral to the Imperium's continued existence, which makes the interactions between them all the more appealing, as surprisingly rare as they can be at times to find. And for me, a particularly interesting meeting between the two came within the novel Priests of Mars, where a Cadian regiment is deployed as part of a Mechanicus expedition, being transported across the galaxy within one of its vast and legendary arcs. And here, we get to see not only how a Magos perceives them, but why of all the Militarum regiments out there, it's the Cadians who surprise him. Despite their lack of augmentation, Magos Dayhan had to admit the Cadian troopers were effective soldiers. Though the 71st Hellhounds had been aboard the Speranza less than 6 hours, they had already run through numerous training scenarios with an aggression and competence that belied their months of transit to Jura from the punishing war zones of the Eastern Fringe. It was a fact of the Imperium's vast scale that most Guard regiments suffered a substantial degradation in their combat effectiveness after long periods of transit in the holds of a Navy mass conveyor. Soldiers and officers alike fell prey to a lassitude engendered by long periods of absence from the front line and the detrimental effects of prolonged Immaterium travel. Not so with these Cadians. 3 times the generator building had been captured, and with every assault the time between the opening shots being fired to the final room being cleared was getting shorter. The building shook with flat, muffled bangs and flickered with the strobing flashes of concussion grenades. Shouting troopers yelled in terse shorthand, a simple battle cant that had clearly been honed over years of service together on their benighted homeworld. It had taken Dayhan less than a second to comprehend the simple coding of their cant, relying as it did on local argot and embedded cultural references. A simple index scan of database, Cadia, and a matching of shouts to actions provided the necessary syntax key to unlock the more complex orders. An inefficient means of relaying commands, but without access to the noosphere or any binaric link between soldiers, It was the best means of conveying orders in the heat of battle, without compromising operational security. Now, Magos Dayhan may not be your usually expected Magos of the Mechanicum, in that he actually specialises in war, not one of the more stereotypical tech priest paths, functioning as Commander-in-General of the Skitarii forces. And so through him, we get a quite unique Mechanicus-style view of war, one very much based in the factual numbers and calculations of the Omnissiah. Given the galaxy's sheer vast scale, the Imperium's vast scale, the revelation of Militarum regiments losing their sharpness, or degrading as Dayhan described it, on those long voyages from warzone to warzone, makes sense. It's logical. There's only so much you can do within the hold of a vessel, even the colossal ones that ply the Imperium space lanes. And it is not uncommon at all for these journeys to last into months, or even years if the warp is against them. So yes, surely, some form of degradation would transpire. But not only do the Cadians maintain their standards, they still seek to improve them. 3 times the generator building had been captured, and with every assault the time between the opening shots being fired to the final room being cleared was getting shorter. There are some famous Militarum recruiting worlds across the galaxy, those that provide the Imperium with some of its most legendary warriors. Catachan, Krieg, Valhalla. Yet even though it has fallen, it's clear Cadia remains a breed apart, able to impress even a tech priest with their statistical results. The ruthlessness of war boiled down to its numbers. And perhaps in a way that's why the Cadian force does impress the Magos, because it's so exact, so well drilled in its way of war, that it is almost a science, machine-like. Cadian tanks rolled through a mock-up of a ruined cityscape, driven with machine-like precision, as automated gun emplacements set up to mimic dug-in enemy units opened fire. No sooner was each position revealed than a pair of supporting tanks would engage the enemy as the target tank raced for cover. With the enemy suppressed, twin Hellhound tanks would roll in from the flanks and unleash blazing streams of promethium over their position. Infantry moved up in support of the tanks, ensuring any remaining enemy soldiers were eliminated. Sniper units riding on the roofs of Chimera armoured fighting vehicles took shots of uncanny accuracy to take out ambush teams armed with missile launchers, or any other form of tank killer. With each pass, Mechanicus Genebolt Ogrins and heavy lifter rigs would move in and rearrange the cityscape's plan in ever more elaborate and deadly ways. With blind corners, fire pockets, kill zones, funnel streets and herringbone crossfires. And every time, the Cadians rolled through with cool, disciplined fury, meeting every new threat with confident rigour. Even on the most testing of battlefield arrangements, few tanks were lost. And even then, none were beyond the ability of Atlas salvage teams to recover and repair. Other units practiced marksman drill, yet more close combat operations. Officers in black and grey, with bronzed breastplates and peaked caps, shouted orders. And even the black, storm-coated commissars were training as hard as any of the soldiers. Something of a rarity among the guard units Dayhan had fought alongside. It was, Dayhan reflected, a thing of beauty to watch battle being given with purity of purpose. Few flesh and blood regiments could achieve anything close to Mechanicus levels of efficiency in war, and Dayhan had to admit that Kotov had chosen well by requesting a formation of Cadians. And there's that key line that sums it all up. Few flesh and blood regiments could achieve anything close to Mechanicus levels of efficiency in war. Efficiency. If you had to describe the aims of the Adeptus Mechanicus in one word, then it would have to be that. Efficiency. And it makes sense for the Cadians of all the recruiting worlds to excel in that regard. The fortress world that held the ruinous powers at bay for so long. That was the preeminent front line of the Imperium for 10,000 years. Everything Cadia did was efficient. It had to be. Its children were taught to shoot as soon as they could barely walk. Lives preordained to be spent in the guard no matter what. Because there was no other choice. The threat of chaos, of the despoiler, was ever present. The eye of terror above them in the night sky eternally. Quite simply, Cadia would not have survived for as long as it did if it wasn't efficient. And so it's no wonder to see that appreciated by the emotionless Mechanicus. Because for them, again, it's all about efficiency. But of course, as good as the Cadians are, still to Magos Dayhan, they are no Skitarii. The legions of the Mechanicus can conduct war just as equally as the Cadians. Even better, without the need for shouting, sweating and everything in between. With a single sub-vocal command, Dayhan can order and execute an entire battle plan. And as far as he's concerned, his legion is the exemplar for all the Mechanicus' fighting forces. The principle of what any soldier of the Omnissiah should strive to be. But is it in truth any different from the methods of the Cadian commanders? Has Magos Dayhan arrived on a new state of war? Or is he no different from any other military leader out there? A case of commander pride? Well, for me, there's one single passage that, for all of Dayhan's logical Mechanicus observations, shows that perhaps he is still just as equally close to the Cadians as they are to him. That it's not just the autonomy of the machine, but simple human ambition and desire. Very infrequently, Dayhan would observe a combat maneuver being carried out with below optimal efficiency, and a terse burst of binary would blurt from his throat augmenter to issue rectifying commands and punishment data. Just as Dayhan sees the machine qualities in the Cadians, you can see the human qualities in him here. His burst of binaric to correct and chastise the Skitarii, no different from the Cadian battle cant he was analysing earlier. No different from any human military commander across the centuries, demanding more from his soldiers. So the Magos may appreciate the qualities of the Cadians over any other Militarum regiment he's witnessed before. And again, perhaps rightly so. But the truth is, even the vaunted Magoses of the Mechanicus, as much as they attempt to leave their humanity behind, are still united in the same basic desire. Dayhan may see the machine, but perhaps it's more simply the human desire to excel. When you boil it all down, the Militarum and the Mechanicus, as vastly different as they are on first observation, both actually want the exact same thing. The results accomplished in the quickest, most efficient way possible. I guess to look at it completely practically, this whole interaction reveals the similarities between the two, not the differences. The Militarum tries in its way to train the soldiers onto autopilot, To act and react and know what to do without thinking. A machine, if you will. And Cadia is a great example of that. It's soldiers and people indoctrinated in war since birth. And the Mechanicum can obviously appreciate that point of view, that logic. But it's a mindset that, at its very core, is guided and motivated by its emotion. Its desire for perfection. To be better. Which, let's be honest here, was the route to Fulgrim's fall to chaos. A very human fall. These left and right hands of the Imperium's survival operate on simple numbers. The same basic premise, that at some point in the command structure, there's going to be someone that looks at it all as a simple game of numbers. Whoever loses the least wins. It permeates both factions entirely. Even the basic Militarum commander wants to lose less casualties than the enemy, to achieve the objective as quickly as possible. So I can understand why Magos Dayhan praises the Cadians so, why he views them as above other regiments within the Militarum he has encountered. But I can also see how it's his own human pride that still leaves him victim to hubris, to not realise how similar they in fact are. But as always everyone, what do you think? For all the first-hand differences between the Militarum and the Mechanicus, do you see the similarities of purpose below the surface? The equal desire for efficiency in their results? Are you surprised it's the Cadians the Magos views as the most efficient regiment he has ever encountered? Or do you think there are other prominent recruiting worlds out there that could give them a run for their money? Is Dayhan right to see the machine-like qualities in the methods employed by the Cadians? Or is it the inevitable observations of one dedicated to the Omnissiah? Given their equal desire for the perfect result, are you surprised there's not more of a shared logic between that of the Militarum and Mechanicus? And is he right to view the Skitarii as a level above the Militarum? Or, as we saw there, does that one passage, that one blurt of correctional orders, reveal that they are still one in the same? That for all their evolution, the forces of the Mechanicus are no different than any human army across history. That the Magos is yet another case of simple commander pride. As always everyone, leave your thoughts in the comments below. Huge thank you to all my subscribers, your support truly means a lot to me, it really does. If you're new, please consider subscribing to help the channel grow. And if you enjoyed this particular vid, then why not drop a like on it too. But with that said, I am off, and I'll see you all again real soon.